Okay, let's dive right into this explainer. Imagine this. An entire empire is literally crumbling to dust. Every single city around you has surrendered. And yet, there's this one tiny, seemingly insignificant outpost that just keeps standing. I'm talking a staggering 1,300 years after everyone else completely threw in the towel and quit. Today we're going to unpack exactly how they pulled off the impossible, and more importantly, how you can take their blueprint for unshakable resilience and apply it to your own life.
It's the ultimate million-dollar question, isn't it? Because let's be honest, most of us are building our modern lives on some seriously shaky ground. We relentlessly chase that next promotion, obsess over our follower counts, or fixate on the bank balance, kind of foolishly thinking that those things form a solid foundation. But then, boom, a major seismic event hits. Maybe it's a market crash, a sudden health scare, or a painful betrayal. And suddenly, those rigid walls we've built, they start to totter and collapse. Well, we're going to explore how one ancient city solved this exact problem of constant, devastating aftershocks.
Section 1. Surviving the shaky ground.
To really grasp this level of resilience, we have to look back at the ancient missionary outpost of Philadelphia. Now, these folks lived in a region called the Katake Omene, which translates to the burned land. Imagine living in a highly volcanic area where the walls of your own house aren't protecting you, they're actually your biggest threat. Every single time the ground started shaking, the people of Philadelphia had to immediately evacuate. They'd flee into the open countryside, absolutely terrified that their own roofs would cave in and crush them. They literally spent their whole lives anxiously running for the exits just to survive another day.
Section 2. The AD 17 earthquake.
And that brings us to the moment that changed absolutely everything, the ultimate test of their character. In the year AD 17, the big one finally hit. We're talking about a massive, catastrophic earthquake that completely leveled 12 major cities in the region. And yeah, Philadelphia was one of them. The devastation was just overwhelming. It forced these exhausted survivors to live out in temporary huts way past the city limits because they were just too terrified to ever go back inside.
But here is the crucial point. It's what they noticed when the dust finally settled. Amidst the total rubble of their civilization, the survivors realized a profound street-smart truth. While all the walls and the roofs had totally crumbled to dust, the massive stone columns of the temples, they were still perfectly intact. Everything else was complete destruction, but those pillars stood proudly, erect in a scene of ruins.
Now, Philadelphia was originally built to be a missionary outpost, right? But it quickly evolved into an absolute masterclass in resilience. Over the years, you had these incredibly powerful Roman emperors trying to claim the city. They tried renaming it Neo-Caesarea and later on Flavia, but you know what? Those names never stuck. The people flat out rejected both and remained Philadelphia. They learned the hard way that a temporary identity or some fancy title handed down by an emperor or a CEO can be revoked in an instant. But an identity built on the core strength of a pillar, that is permanent.
Section 3. The pillar mindset.
And this realization sparked a profound psychological shift. This is really where the true power of this whole story lies. When you look at how the risen king addresses this specific city in the historical texts, it's fascinating. He doesn't offer them a bigger army. He doesn't offer them piles of gold. Instead, he promises, I will make him a pillar in the temple of my God, and he shall go out no more. Think about that. For a population completely exhausted from spending their entire lives running outside every time the floor vibrated, this was the ultimate payoff. He offered them true permanence in a world defined by endless aftershocks.
So here's the street-smart truth for your own career or your finances right now. You absolutely must stop building rigid walls and start developing the core strength of a pillar. Think about it. Walls are entirely for show. They might look super impressive to the neighbors, but they're rigid, and they inevitably crack under pressure. Pillars, on the other hand, they quietly carry the heavy weight when the shaking starts.
Section 4. The strategy of authority.
Now, you might be sitting there thinking, well, I don't have the vast resources to outlast an empire. But hey, neither did they. The historical text actually goes out of its way to note that the people of Philadelphia had very little strength. They weren't some massive, reputable powerhouse like the city of Sardis. They didn't have a booming, wealthy economic port like Ephesus, but they possessed something so much more powerful. They had the Key of David, which is the authority to open doors that literally no human being could ever shut. And this brilliantly illustrates a crucial modern distinction for us. We constantly confuse influence with authority. Let's be real. Influence is mostly a vanity metric. It's just a measure of how many people follow you on social media or applaud your ideas. But authority? Authority is about who actually holds the keys to the room. If you only have little strength, but you relentlessly maintain the open door of integrity and faithfulness, I guarantee you will ultimately outlast the giants who rely on nothing but fleeting influence.
Section 5. The 1390 Phenomenon.
And listen, this isn't just some inspiring metaphor. We have hard historical proof that complacency is the silent killer of the rich, while relentless pressure actually forges the faithful. Because as the centuries ruthlessly rolled on, every single other major Christian city in that region eventually fell to the massive Ottoman advance. One by one, the bright lampstands of the ancient world just went dark. But incredibly, this little city with little strength stayed erect all the way until the year 1390. They outlasted everyone else by literally centuries.
It's so undeniable that even the famous secular historian Edward Gibbon, who by the way was certainly no friend to religion, looked back at the scattered ruins of that massive empire and had to begrudgingly admit the facts. He wrote that Philadelphia was still erect, a column in the scene of ruins. They quite literally became exactly what was promised to them, a permanent pillar that never ever had to pack up and leave.
Section 6. Building your legacy. Applying these profound lessons to the guaranteed aftershocks of our own modern lives brings every single one of us to a critical crossroads today. You have a choice in how you construct your life. So what's it going to be? Are you chasing a Sardis life? You know, the kind that looks totally amazing on the outside, perfectly curated for all the onlookers, but is actually completely hollow and dead on the inside? Or are you intentionally crafting a Philadelphia legacy? A life where, yeah, you might feel like you currently have little strength, but through deep integrity and core values, you're becoming unshakable. That is a legacy where your name is permanent and unreplaced, rather than just written in pencil by a temporary boss or some fleeting cultural trend. The hard truth is, the ground beneath us is inevitably going to tremble. The aftershocks of life, of our economies, of our relationships, they are 100% guaranteed. So ask yourself right now, what are you building? Are you ready to stop desperately chasing those rigid walls that are just going to crack anyway? It is time to stop fleeing. It's time, finally, to become the pillar.